topic is there in the midst of all of these conversations about terrorism. But there is a commonality here. I want to commend to you two things. One is a book by Michelle Alexander. It's called The New Jim Crow, The Mass Incarceration of African Americans. It's out in paperback now. Michelle Alexander is a law professor at Ohio State University. She used to be on the legal staff of the ACLU in California. And also this Monday evening at 10 o'clock on PBS, I'm not sure which of the PBS stations here, but one of the PBS stations has a video called The House I Live In. It's done by Eugene Jarecki, who is an American filmmaker, and it's about the mass incarceration of African Americans, and particularly around the war on drugs. And so there's the common thread. When America declares war, everybody better watch out. Whether it's on war in another place or war at home. Ronald Reagan declared a war on drugs in 1982. And at that time, there were 300,000 Americans incarcerated in prisons and jails in our nation. In the years since 1982, we have grown from 300,000 Americans incarcerated to 2.4 million Americans. Michelle Alexander's book is only focused on, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about today comes from her book. A little bit comes from Eugene Jarecki's video. She only focuses on the impact of the war on drugs on African American men. It does have impact on Latino communities. It does have impact on African American and Latino women, but that's not what she was really looking at. And so she's encouraged other people to be aware of that. But one of the things that she says is that a human rights nightmare is occurring on our watch. And for me, what is happening in terms of the mass incarceration of African American men in particular is very similar to what is happening in terms of the Arab and the Muslim communities in the United States. It's, in both cases, they are a human rights nightmare that is occurring on our watch and that most Americans are totally oblivious to. They don't see it, even if they live in the midst of it. Even if you are a poor African American family living in inner city U.S., you don't realize that what has happened in terms of what Michelle Alexander calls a new racial caste system. And what she means by that is, once you are incarcerated in the United States, once you are accused of a felony, you enter what she calls a parallel universe. So that when you are released from prison, you're not eligible for public housing for at least 5 years. In some cases, never. In many cases, you cannot get jobs. And for those of you who have nothing to do, or even if you do have something to do this Monday night, there's some flyers on the floor. The Hope Nehemiah Action, and you can pass them out, please. The Hope Nehemiah Action is going to be Monday night at Mount Calvary Church at 6:30. And one of the issues that we're tackling is the city of Tampa's inclusion of that little box that says, do you have a conviction? And so we have members of the city council coming. They've already passed one ordinance. We're trying to get them to expand that ordinance. So part of it is around jobs. You can't live in public housing. In many cases, you're excluded from jobs because you have to check that box that's on applications. That box, by the way, is illegal. According to the federal government, it is illegal to ask that question because it has a disparate impact on people of color. But employers, including governments, ignore that all the time. You cannot, in some cases, get health care benefits. In some states, if you have a felony drug conviction, you cannot get food stamps. In some cases, in some states, you're not eligible for licenses for certain jobs. Like in some states, you cannot become a barber. Yeah, there's a real reason for that. So you enter this parallel universe where you can never get out. It's a racial caste system that you can never get out of. And she calls it racial because it's not overtly racial, but when you have oh, shut up, Siri. When you want Siri to work, she doesn't work. When she wants when you know, you really can't get out of this system. She calls it racial caste system because even though it's not overtly racial, it has a disproportionate impact on African American men. African American men are somewhere between 20 and 50 times more likely to receive convictions around drug cases than white males. She probably does better than I do the numbers. The other things the other similarities between what we were talking about before and the whole question about the rising of the incredible rise of incarceration of African Americans, both of them, the war on drugs and the war on terrorism, have very few, the police have very few legal constraints about what they can do. And so that's a similarity between the two. Another similarity is that the courts have pretty much given a free pass when it comes to cases around terrorism or when it comes to cases around drugs. They've pretty much said, you're not, if you appeal, it's probably not, you know, 1%, she said. It's probably not, it might be a little bit better for drug cases, but not very much better. And so the courts have given a free pass to those, they've pretty much immunized, if you will, the criminal justice system. Whatever they do, however they get their information, using informants, using whatever. They do really SWAT teams. The other intersection point is the enormous amount of money. The enormous amount of money that our government spends on these cases. And the enormous amount of money that police departments can receive for SWAT teams. For instance, when you heard the whole conversation before the Republican National Convention, I mean, they were talking about drones. Come on, drones in Tampa. You know, the possibility. Now we've still got the cameras up down there. What are they doing with them? Nobody knows. But there's an enormous amount of money that is an incentive to police departments to receive equipment, to receive all this other stuff from the federal government because we have set aside so much money. And so that's another piece, another intersection point between the two. I just want to make sure I had all the pieces I wanted to talk about. I guess. One of the things that you begin to understand is what we've done or what we're doing in the process of all of this, I believe, is that as we continue to convict people, large numbers of people, unfairly, unjustly. Not only are we tearing apart the Constitution, the United States Constitution, those things that we say we believe in, but we're eating our own young alive. You know, like those animals that eat their own young. There's something wrong with a society that makes that choice. There's a moral sickness there that I don't think we have even begun to address or understand. There's lots more I could say. I would urge you to read Michelle Alexander's book. It's out in paperback now. It has all the statistics. It has all of the information. She looks at the history of the legal, how African Americans in this country have been treated by the legal system from the very beginning. She looks at particularly the drug war, but she looks beyond that also. So I would encourage you to read her book. I would encourage you to watch Eugene Jarecki's video, The House I Live In. We're going to probably screen it here. I have a copy of it. We're going to probably screen it here sometime in May, so I'll send it to Melish and we'll send it out to all of our networks. So, you know, you might want to come and have a conversation about it. It's very powerful. He tells the story of the other piece that around the money he talks about is the privatization of the prison system. And again, we're back to that money point and how much that drives the mass incarceration of African Americans. We don't have factories anymore to employ, and we don't have farms anymore to employ people. So we build prisons and employ people that way. Another version of eating your young alive. I will stop there, but I hope many of you can join us on Monday night as we. One of the things that Michelle Alexander says is that you really have, and both she and Jarecki both say the same thing. We have to start a movement in this country in order to really confront this evil. It is so big. It is so. It's got so much money. It's got its tentacles in so many parts of our nation that we really have to start a movement in order to combat it. And I think she's right. But at the same time, I think we have to begin to take apart the little pieces. So we're doing our little piece here in Tampa around banning the box and getting them to take that off of the. They've already agreed to take it off the City of Tampa employment applications. But we want to get them to expand that. The only way we can do that is if you show up. So I hope to see many of you Monday night. Thanks for coming today.